With nitrogen prices at an all-time high, the use of clover is becoming important in maintaining the output of your grassland. But as you well know, maintaining it in the grassland is another story. David Uni has spent the past 30 years researching the use of clover and utilising it in practical farming situations.
Two areas where farmers can profitably improve their grassland production and management, and that is looking at soil structure more closely, to aiming to enhance the mineralisation of nitrogen from soil organic matter, because that will help to reduce nitrogen fertiliser requirements, but also, and perhaps more importantly, is to make much more use of clover. I mean, farmers forever have put clover in their seed mixtures, but they've basically not really paid very much attention to it, and not established and managed the sward to maximise the clover. Well, clover has several advantages, and I've been banging on about clover for 30 odd years or so. The most obvious benefit is a saving in nitrogen fertiliser, and we're looking at savings of 150, 200 pounds a hectare in terms of nitrogen fertiliser saving. And really, I personally don't believe there is any justification in using nitrogen on grass at all, except perhaps for a small amount of nitrogen in the spring to encourage early growth. Nitrogen fixation is a fantastic opportunity for farmers to benefit from. In addition to the fertiliser saving value of clover, there's also animal performance benefits as well, because we know that lambs, especially grazing on clover, will grow much faster than lambs grazing on ryegrass. We've got benefits in the silage situation. Red clover silage is much better than grass silage. So there's animal performance benefits as well. Of course, these benefits of clover will only be achieved with a good clover content in the sward, and this is where people tend to fall down. Everybody puts clover into their mixtures, but we've only got a relatively small amount of clover actually developing in the sward. And really, you need a lot of clover in the sward to get these benefits in terms of nitrogen saving and animal performance. And farmers need to establish the sward and manage the sward specifically to maximise the clover content in the sward. You know, the sward here behind me is basically what you should be aiming for in July, August time. The clover content in a sward, the white clover content in a sward, builds up from a relatively low level early in the year to a maximum in July, August and September. And what I would usually say is you should be aiming for 80 to 100% ground cover of white clover in July and August. I mean, that sounds a lot, but that's how much I feel you should be aiming for, ideally. These are white clover stolons which grow on the surface of the soil. There are light receptors on the clover, and that's why in the relationship between grass and clover, it's important at certain times of the year to avoid too much competition from the grass. This is the reason for the need for grazing in the back end and during the winter, to get rid of the grass cover, to allow light into these light receptors on the stolons, so that branching in the subsequent season is good and you get a good clover content. You know, and it's equally the adverse effect, the reason for the adverse effect of nitrogen fertiliser applied in the spring. You know, you apply nitrogen fertiliser in the spring to a grass clover sward, that immediately encourages the grass to grow, which shades out the clover stolons and prevents light reaching the light receptors on the stolons, so that the branching in the subsequent 2 or 3 months of the summer is reduced. Well, white clover will fix depending on the clover content, but we're talking about 120 to 180 kilos of nitrogen per hectare per annum. But farm experience and research experience has shown that really good white clover sward, we're talking about a short-term sward, maybe 3, 4, 5 year swards, will support 1.6 livestock units per hectare, including the winter keep requirement as well. So that includes the silage requirement as well, which is a pretty high level of stocking, really. It doesn't meet the very high levels of stocking rate that very intensive dairy farmers might be wanting to apply. But if you think about it, the average use of nitrogen fertiliser on grassland across the whole of the UK now is only about 75 kilos of nitrogen. So that's substantially less than what clover can actually fix. And that's why I think to myself, well, why is anybody using nitrogen fertiliser?